Rain hammers the
Your
emergency room
survival is
windows
tied
with
to
fists
mine.
that won't stop. Dr. Vivienne Trent pulls off her gloves, the latex stretches, tears, falls
Your
into the
survival
medical
is
waste
tied to
bin.
mine.
16 hours of seeing people break. 16 hours of trying to stitch them back together.
Your
She's
survival is
exhausted,
tied to
running on
mine.
coffee that's been cold for 2 hours and adrenaline that's finally abandoning her bloodstream. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting everything in hospital white. She just wants to sit in her car and not think. The side entrance door explodes inward. 2 men in tailored suits move fast, carrying a third man between them. The third man's suit is Italian, expensive, now soaked through with blood. His face is sharp, angular jawline, dark eyes that even in agony hold something dangerous. Those eyes snap toward Vivienne for exactly 1 second. She knows who he is before her brain can process the recognition. Everyone in Chicago knows who he is. Viktor Morozov. The name people whisper in hospital break rooms when they think no one's listening. The man who doesn't go to emergency rooms. The man emergency rooms go to. We need a doctor. Now, the first suited man says. His hand moves inside his jacket, comes out holding a Glock. The barrel presses against the receptionist's forehead. Tanya. Her name tag says Tanya. She's working her way through nursing school. Her eyes go wide as saucers. The hospital shifts. Patients scream. A nurse drops a tray of instruments. Metal crashes across tiles. Vivienne's heart rate spikes, she can feel her pulse in her throat, behind her eyes. Security hasn't moved. Why haven't they moved? The 2 armed men stand between the entrance and the emergency staff like a wall nobody's willing to climb. Viktor Morozov bleeds on the floor, and everyone pretends not to see him. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Vivienne's rational brain screams at her to leave. Walk away. Disappear into the supply room. Let hospital security handle this. This is a federal problem, not a medical one. This man is everything she swore she'd never be involved with. But her brother Tommy flashes through her mind. Tommy, shot by gang violence 5 years ago, bleeding on a different emergency room floor, and nobody hesitated. She picked him up and saved him. He's a youth counselor now. Clean. Redeemed. He works with kids who should have been dead by 22. She steps forward. I can help him, Vivienne hears herself say. Her voice sounds steady, which is impossible given that her hands are shaking. But not with an audience. The first suited man turns toward her. His hand tightens on the gun. The second man exchanges a look with Viktor, some silent conversation happening in the space between them. Viktor nods. Once. That's all it takes. The men lower their weapons. Vivienne hears the receptionist gasp, sucks in air like she's been holding her breath underwater. Clear the wing, Viktor says. His accent is Russian, thick as winter. His voice is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes people listen harder. Everyone out. Now. Security moves. Nurses grab patients. There's a scramble of bodies heading toward the main corridor. Vivienne watches it happen like she's watching a film. This isn't real. This can't be real. Moments like this don't happen in Chicago hospitals. Moments like this happen in other cities, in other lives, to other doctors. But it's happening. The surgical wing empties. The cameras, she watches one of the suited men reach up and unscrew the camera above the nurse's station. He does it like he's unscrewed 1,000 cameras. Maybe he has. Victor's eyes find hers. There's blood on his white shirt, spreading across his abdomen in a shape that looks like a map of somewhere she doesn't want to go. He's trying to stand upright, but his legs aren't cooperating. His expensive suit is going to be ruined. The bullet must have torn through something vital. Her surgeon's brain catalogues the damage instantly. Bleeding out. Shock setting in. Without intervention, he has maybe 10 minutes before his organs start shutting down. Maybe less. You're going to walk with me, Viktor says to her. Not a request. A statement of fact. The men in suits part, creating a pathway toward the surgical wing. Toward privacy. Toward the space where Vivienne will make a choice she won't be able to undo. She knows this already. She knows stepping into that hallway means crossing a line that doesn't have an opposite side. You don't come back from saving Viktor Morozov. You don't come back from putting your hands inside his body and pulling him back from the edge of death. There are debts that can't be repaid. There are obligations that eat you alive from the inside. She walks. Viktor moves beside her, leaning against one of the suited men. His breathing is shallow. He's focusing on her face like she's the only real thing in the room. They walk past the empty nursing stations, past the surgical prep area, into the private operating theater where Vivienne handles her most critical cases. The man supporting Viktor sets him down on the surgical bed. The metal gleams under the lights. Viktor looks at her again, and for one moment, she sees something she wasn't expecting: fear. Real, genuine fear. Not the fear of pain. The fear of mortality. The fear of being human and fragile and mortal despite all his money and all his power and all the men with guns who follow him everywhere. He's afraid of dying. And she's about to decide whether he gets to. 3 hours. The surgical lights are bright enough to cast shadows that don't exist. Vivienne moves through the space like a dancer who's practiced this routine 10,000 times. Her hands are steady now. The shaking stopped somewhere around the first incision. The bullet came out at a difficult angle, the kind of angle that suggests Viktor Morozov has made somebody very angry. The kind of angle that suggests this isn't the first time he's been shot. The internal bleeding is significant but not catastrophic. Her hands work through the damage methodically. No questions asked. No judgment. Just a doctor and her patient and the space between life and death where most of her work actually happens. She doesn't think about who he is. She doesn't think about the Chicago Tribune articles about his organization. She doesn't think about the federal investigations or the missing people or the territories he controls. She thinks about anatomy. She thinks about blood flow. She thinks about whether this man will wake up tomorrow. The anesthesia starts wearing off around hour 2.5. Viktor's eyes flutter. His hand moves, an involuntary gesture. Vivienne places her own hand near his, not quite touching. A barrier. A boundary. He focuses on her face. She's covered in his blood. It's on her mask, her gown, even somehow on her forehead despite the protective barrier. She's never felt less like a healer and more like an accomplice. Why? His voice is rough, barely a whisper. You could have let me die. She finishes the last suture before she answers. The needle moves in and out, pulling tissue together, closing the wound. When she finally speaks, her voice is lower than usual, like she's confessing something she's wanted to say for years. I'm a doctor, she says. Not a judge. The words hang between them. She can feel their weight. She can feel them changing the shape of her life into something different. Viktor's eyes close, but his hand doesn't move. It stays near hers. Not touching. Almost touching. In that almost space where complicated relationships always begin. When he opens his eyes again, something has shifted. The fever dreams set in around hour 3. Viktor talks about places she's never been. He talks about a sister named Natasha who was supposed to move to California but something kept her in Chicago. He talks about his mother, who died when he was 22. He talks about the day he realized he had power and didn't know what to do with it. None of this makes him sympathetic. None of this changes what he is. But it makes him something else too. Something human. Something that bleeds and hurts and remembers his mother. Vivienne finishes the bandaging. Her hands are steady. Her mind is already 3 steps ahead, thinking about complications and infection risks and how long she can keep this quiet before the hospital administration realizes who's on the surgical table. She doesn't answer any of his questions. She lets him talk, the way you let someone talk when you know they won't remember this conversation. When you know they'll think they were dreaming. But she remembers. That's the thing about being a doctor. You remember everything. Over the next 2 hours, the men in suits arrange for a private recovery room. Not at St. Catherine's. Somewhere else. Somewhere Viktor's people own or control or have some arrangement with that Vivienne doesn't ask about. They move him carefully, securing the bandaging. One of the men, the one who was always more patient with her instructions, nods his thanks. That's all. Just a nod. A small gesture that carries enormous weight. When they leave, Vivienne stands alone in the surgical theater. Blood spotting the floor. Medical supplies scattered across the surgical tray. Her scrubs feel like they're made of lead. She's violated every professional ethics code her medical license is built on. She's violated hospital policy. She's violated federal law by not calling the authorities. She's violated her own moral compass in ways she didn't think were possible until approximately 4 hours ago. Her phone buzzes. One message. From an unknown number. Just 5 words, "He asked about you twice." She deletes it immediately. Then she goes to the bathroom and throws up. The next morning, Vivienne sits at her kitchen table with her laptop open. The screen glows in the darkness. She hasn't bothered with the lights. Her apartment is a studio in a part of Chicago where studios are affordable. White walls. Hardwood floors that creak. A window facing an alley. No view. Just a place to sleep and sometimes eat and sometimes pretend that being a doctor means something beyond what happened last night. She types Viktor Morozov into Google. The results come up instantly. 17 million hits. She starts with Wikipedia, which gives her the official version: organized crime figure, suspected ties to Russian mob operations, federal investigations ongoing, numerous allegations of violence with no convictions. The word alleged appears 17 times on one page. It's the coward's word. It means maybe. It means probably. It means everyone knows but nobody can prove. She moves to news articles. The Chicago Tribune runs a special feature every 6 months. The Morozov question: who holds power in Chicago's underworld? Journalism is careful. Specific crimes are mentioned but always in the conditional tense. Sources say Morozov allegedly manages. An anonymous informant suggests. The articles dance around what everyone knows is true. She finds a photograph. Viktor stands in front of a penthouse building. Expensive suit. Expensive watch. A woman on his arm, dark hair, elegant dress, hanging from his arm like she's been trained to hang from men's arms. The caption reads, Viktor Morozov at a Chicago charity event, 2019. He looks cold in the photograph. Like someone wearing a human face as a mask. Her phone rings. Not a call. A text from an unknown number again. Delete your search history. She stares at it. The phone feels hot in her hand. She deletes the browser history. She deletes all her searches. She deletes the text message. She sits in the darkness of her apartment and realizes something fundamental. She's not just involved anymore. She's watched. Of course she's watched. Why would Viktor Morozov let a woman who could destroy him with a single phone call remain unwatched? Her best friend Maya calls her later that day. They've been friends since medical school. Maya works at a different hospital, different neighborhood, different life that is still somehow connected to Vivienne's like 2 threads in the same fabric. Vivienne answers on the 3rd ring because not answering looks suspicious. You sound weird, Maya says immediately. Maya has always been good at reading voices. I'm just tired. Rough shift yesterday. How rough? Vivienne thinks about lying. She thinks about telling the truth. She thinks about the fact that the truth would destroy her medical career and possibly her freedom. She lies. Just the usual. Trauma cases. Didn't sleep well. You need to do something for yourself. You're burning out. Maya's concern is genuine. It makes the lie worse. Let's grab lunch. Tomorrow? That Italian place do you like? I can't. I'm working a double. Vivienne, you're working doubles 3 times a week. You're going to destroy yourself. Vivienne almost laughs. She's already destroyed herself. She started destroying herself the moment she stepped into that surgical theater. Everything that comes next is just the continuation of a process that's already begun. I know. I'll slow down next week. Promise. Promise, Vivienne says, and she means it. Next week she'll definitely be doing something different. That much is certain. After she hangs up, there's a knock on her apartment door. She doesn't answer at first. Nobody comes to her apartment. Her family is estranged, her mother lives across the country and they talk twice a year out of obligation. Her father died when she was in medical school. She doesn't have the kind of life where people just drop by. The knock comes again. More insistent. She opens the door. A delivery driver stands there holding a box. Expensive looking. Black cardstock with a silver ribbon. He hands it to her without speaking and leaves. She closes the door and sits on her kitchen floor with the box in her lap. It takes her 5 minutes to open it. Inside is $500,000 in a cashier's check. Nothing else. No note. No explanation. Just the money. Just the opening move in a game she doesn't know the rules to. Vivienne doesn't cash the check immediately. She puts it in an envelope. She puts the envelope in her freezer, hidden behind frozen vegetables that she never eats. She goes to work. She sees patients. She does the job she trained 8 years for. She pretends that nobody's watching her. She pretends that the stranger at the pharmacy isn't positioned to see her face. She pretends that the man reading a newspaper in the hospital cafeteria isn't actually reading the same page for 7 hours. But she's aware of them. 2 weeks pass this way. Regular rotations. Normal cases. Nothing unusual except everything is unusual because she knows she's being surveilled and she can't prove it and she can't tell anyone and she can't escape it. Then Victor appears. He's at the hospital. Walking through the main corridor like he owns the building. He's still favoring his left side slightly, the wound is healing but not fully healed. He moves toward the emergency department like he's got an appointment. Nobody stops him. That's the thing about walking through the world like you belong there. Nobody questions you. He finds her in the surgical prep area. She's between patients, washing her hands at the sink. She sees him in the mirror before she turns around. Their eyes meet. His are dark, intense, grateful in a way that makes her stomach drop. "I came to thank you," he says. His accent is less pronounced when he's sober. "Publicly. I want your colleagues to know that you saved my life." Everything in her body seizes. "Don't do that." "Why not?" "Because then I'll look like I was involved with you. Because it'll end my career. Because it'll destroy my reputation." Or, he says, and his voice carries the weight of someone used to being listened to, "it'll make you untouchable." Who would harm a doctor who just saved the city's most powerful man? He leaves. That's all. He just leaves. But the damage is done. By evening, the news has spread through the hospital. Vivienne Trent saved Victor Morozov. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows why. But everyone knows she did. Her supervisor calls her into his office the next morning. Dr. Khalil has been running the emergency medicine department for 12 years. He's a good man. Fair. Strict about protocol but humane about compassion. He's looking at her like he's trying to solve an equation that doesn't have a clear answer. "There are some questions about a patient 2 weeks ago," he says carefully. "A patient who came through the side entrance. Unofficial channels. The hospital board is asking me why we don't have records of this patient, and I'm going to need you to explain what happened." Vivienne sits in the chair across from him. It's a small chair. It makes her feel smaller. "I treated a gunshot wound," she says. "I documented it. I provided appropriate medical care. We have no record of that documentation. Then it got lost." Dr. Khalil leans back in his chair. He's disappointed. It's worse than if he were angry. Anger she could handle. Disappointment feels like betrayal. "I'm recommending the hospital board offer you a position as head of our new emergency medicine department," he says. "It's a promotion. Significant salary increase. Corner office. It comes with one condition." Vivienne waits. "You stop asking questions about protocol and you let the board handle the rest." She knows what this means. Someone with money and power has already made a call. Someone has already decided her future. She's being paid off, not with direct money but with advancement. With the promise of everything she's ever worked for. All she has to do is accept that her autonomy no longer exists. She accepts. The office they assign her has floor-to-ceiling windows on the east side. She can see most of the city from her chair. And on the far west side of her view, directly in the distance, is a penthouse building. She knows which one. She's looked at it on Google Earth. The penthouse belongs to an LLC that traces back through multiple shell companies, but she knows who really owns it. Viktor Morozov is looking at her from that building right now. She's certain of it. She can feel it in her chest, a pressure, a weight, an awareness. The view from her new office is designed to show her exactly what she needs to see. That she saved his life. That he's grateful. That he's powerful enough to give her a promotion just by having her treated her. That she is now part of his world whether she wanted to be or not. She pulls the chair as far from the window as possible. That night, another check arrives. This one is for $2 million. It's addressed to St. Catherine's Hospital for the creation of a new emergency medicine wing in memory of an important donor. There's no name attached. But she knows who the donor is. 3 months have passed. Vivienne's life fractures into 2 separate timelines that don't intersect. In one timeline, she's Dr. Vivienne Trent, Director of Emergency Medicine at one of Chicago's most respected hospitals. She publishes research. She supervises residents. She does television interviews about emergency protocols and trauma response. In that timeline, her life is exactly what she always wanted it to be. In the other timeline, she's the woman Viktor Morozov can reach whenever he decides to reach for her. It starts with her brother. Tommy calls one Sunday afternoon. He's been sober for 5 years, clean, working at a community center, helping kids who are exactly where he used to be. But his funding just got cut. The city is pulling support. He's facing layoffs. There's going to be a round of terminations next week, and his program is number 3 on the list of things the city doesn't want to fund anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do, Tommy says. He sounds young. Even though he's 31, he sounds like he did when he was 16. Right after the shooting, still learning how to be alive. These kids need this program. Vivienne tells him they'll figure it out. She tells him to keep his head down. She hangs up the phone and sits in her apartment, and she knows, with absolute clarity, what's going to happen next. The funding for Tommy's program gets restored. Not by the city. By a private donor who wants to remain anonymous. Not enough to save it permanently, but enough to keep it operating for the next year. Enough to buy time. Vivienne gets an email from Tommy with screenshots of the deposit notification. He's ecstatic. Confused about where the money came from, but ecstatic. She knows exactly where it came from. Then her mother gets diagnosed with cancer. Breast cancer, stage 2, serious enough to be dangerous but early enough to have treatment options. Vivienne is sitting in her mother's oncologist's office when Dr. Raymond Lynn mentions that there's a top specialist in Chicago. Dr. Aisha Okafor. Her waiting list is 2 years long. Unless, of course, there are extraordinary circumstances. Vivienne's mother's appointment with Dr. Okafor is scheduled for 3 days later. Dr. Okafor is the best in the Midwest. Within 6 months, Vivienne's mother is in remission. Her mother keeps asking her who paid for the specialized treatment. Vivienne doesn't have an answer that doesn't involve explaining things that can't be explained. And then there's her dream. The clinic. The reason she became a doctor in the first place. She wants to open a free clinic in the neighborhoods where clinics don't exist. Where people die from preventable diseases because they can't afford the prevention. Where kids like Tommy used to live before they got shot in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's been planning it for years. She's been saving. She's been researching grant opportunities and non-profits and ways to make it happen. The obstacles are enormous. The funding doesn't exist. The properties are too expensive. The insurance regulations create barriers that seem insurmountable. Then one morning, Vivienne finds an email from a real estate company. They're offering her a property in the West Side. The building is perfect. Abandoned medical clinic from the 1990s. Solid structure. Good bones. The price is listed at $5 million. The second email, from the same company, offers her the property for $400,000 if she commits to opening a medical practice within 18 months. That's the moment she understands. She's not making independent choices anymore. Every aspect of her life is being carefully managed by someone else. Her brother's salvation. Her mother's healing. Her dreams are becoming possible. It's all being orchestrated by Viktor Morozov like he's conducting a symphony and she's just one of the instruments. The realization should feel controlling. It should feel like a violation. But it also feels like the first time in her life that she's been part of something larger than herself. Someone is taking care of her. Someone is ensuring that the people she loves are safe. Someone is making her dreams real. She calls the real estate company and accepts the offer. The closing happens in 2 weeks. She's going to open the clinic. It's actually going to happen. The dream is real. That night, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He wants to know if you're ready to meet him. Not by accident. On purpose. He's waiting. There's an address included. A restaurant. Expensive. The kind of place where tables are private and conversations don't get recorded. The kind of place where powerful men have their most important meetings. She deletes the text. She doesn't go. She tells herself that showing up would be crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. That meeting him face to face, knowing what she knows, acknowledging what she can no longer deny, that this is real and it's going to keep happening, would mean surrendering something essential about herself. But she knows, even as she's thinking it, that she's already surrendered. The question is only whether she's going to acknowledge what's already happened, or whether she's going to keep pretending she still has a choice. She gets in her car. She drives to the restaurant. And when she walks through the door, she sees a man sitting alone at a corner table, waiting for her, smiling like he's been expecting her all along. Victor sits with his hands folded on the table like he's waiting for prayer. The restaurant is exactly what Vivienne expected: dark wood, soft lighting, a corner booth positioned so nobody can see who's sitting in it. A waiter appears and disappears without taking an order. Water arrives anyway. The ice cubes clink against the glass. That's the only sound for a long moment. "You came," Victor says. His accent is thicker than before. He sounds tired. He sounds like a man who's been waiting for something his whole life, and now that it's here, he doesn't know what to do with it. Vivienne sits across from him. She doesn't remove her coat. She doesn't commit to staying by settling into the leather seat the way someone who plans to be here for a while would. She holds herself at the edge of leaving, even though they both know she isn't leaving. "I shouldn't have," she says. "But you did." "Yes." Victor reaches for his water glass. His hand is steady, but there's something in his eyes that contradicts the steadiness. He's nervous. This powerful man, the man who runs territories and organizations and has people carry guns to back up his decisions, is sitting across from a doctor and feeling something that looks a lot like vulnerability. "I need you to understand something," he says. "Everything I've done, the money for your brother, the doctor for your mother, the property for the clinic, none of it was charity." "I know. Do you?" Vivienne meets his gaze. His eyes are dark, almost black in this light. She can see herself reflected in them, distorted, small, like she's looking at her life from the wrong end of a telescope. "You were buying me," she says flatly. "You were building debt. You were making it impossible for me to refuse you because you'd already made yourself indispensable to the people I love." Yes. The honesty hits harder than a lie would have. At least with a lie, she could tell herself stories about his intentions. At least with manipulation disguised as care, she could convince herself that the caring was real. But he's not giving her that option. He's sitting across from her and admitting exactly what he did, and somehow that admission is almost worse than the manipulation itself because it means she can't excuse him and she can't excuse herself. "Why?" she asks. "Because I needed to know that you wouldn't destroy me," he says. "When you saved my life, you became the only person in this city who could bury me. You could walk into a police station tomorrow and tell them everything that happened that night. You could destroy my organization with one conversation. I needed to make sure you never wanted to do that. I needed to make sure your survival was tied to mine. And is it? Your brother's program is funded by money that doesn't exist on paper. Your mother's specialized treatment cost more than most people make in a year, and it came from accounts that trace directly back to me. Your clinic is built on property that I own. The deed is in my name. You're running it, but I own it. So yes, Vivienne. Your survival is tied to mine. If I go down, everything collapses. Your brother loses his program. Your mother's doctors stop being available. The clinic closes. Everything disappears. Vivienne feels the room tilt. She reaches for her water glass because she needs something to do with her hands. The ice cubes clink against her teeth when she drinks. Everything tastes like ice. Everything tastes like the moment when you realize you've been swimming in dangerous water the whole time and you only now notice the sharks. You're a monster, she says. Yes. You trapped me. Yes. You made me complicit in everything you do. Yes. The waiter appears again. Victor waves him away without looking at him. The man vanishes like he was never there. That's when Vivienne understands the real scope of what Victor has built. It's not just money and territory. It's the kind of power that makes people move in your direction without needing to ask why. It's the kind of power that rewrites the rules of how the world works. What do you want from me? She asks. I want you to understand who I am, Victor says. Not the version you can find on the internet. The version that's sitting in front of you. I'm a man who built an empire because I didn't have any choice. My father was in the business. My uncle was in the business. By the time I was old enough to make decisions, my family was already in so deep that there was no way out. So I went deeper. I got better at it. I became the best at it. And somewhere along the way, I became the kind of man who can look you in the eye and admit that he just locked your entire family into a cage made of good intentions. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know what you're involved with, he says. You need to know that when you walk out of this restaurant, and you might walk out of this restaurant, you're not going back to your old life. That version of Vivienne is gone. The doctor who thought she could save people without getting blood on her hands is dead. She died the moment you stepped into that surgical theater. What you need to decide is whether you're going to accept that and move forward, or whether you're going to spend the rest of your life pretending you still have a choice. Vivienne stands up. The chair scrapes against the tile. It's the loudest noise in the restaurant. Everyone should hear it. Everyone should turn and look at her. But nobody does. That's how private this booth is. That's how completely Victor owns this space. I'm going to think about it, she says. No, you're not, Victor says. There's no anger in his voice. There's no threat. He's just stating a fact. You're going to walk out of here, and you're going to drive to your apartment. You're going to sit in your car in the parking lot and you're going to cry. And then you're going to realize that you've already decided. You decided the moment you got in your car to drive here. The question isn't whether you're going to accept this. The question is how long you're going to pretend you haven't already. Vivienne walks toward the exit. Behind her, Victor doesn't call out. He doesn't try to stop her. He just sits there like a man who's already won. And the terrible part is he's right. She can feel it. By the time she reaches her car, she knows he's right. She's already decided. She decided to go to the hospital. She decided when she deposited the check. She decided when she accepted the promotion. She's been deciding the same thing over and over, just in different ways. She sits in her car and doesn't cry. She's past crying. She's past the point where tears mean anything. Her phone buzzes. A text from Victor, go home. Tomorrow, you'll find an invitation. Come or don't. The cage is already built. The penthouse is on the 42nd floor. The elevator rises silently, and with each passing floor, Vivienne feels like she's ascending into a world where different rules apply. The invitation arrived at her apartment at 6 in the morning. Heavy cardstock. Black ink. An address and a time. No name. No signature. Just the certainty that she'd know who it was from. She almost didn't come. She wore a black dress anyway. The kind of dress that's appropriate for important moments, for moments that matter, for moments where you're making choices that will echo for the rest of your life. Her reflection in her bathroom mirror looked like someone she didn't recognize. Her hair is pulled back tight. Her makeup is perfect. She looks composed. She looks like someone in control. It's a lie. She feels like she's about to walk off a cliff. The elevator doors open directly into the penthouse. She steps out and stops moving. The space is enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows show the entire city of Chicago stretched out below like something small and manageable. The lake is in the distance, dark blue, infinite. The sun is setting, and the light coming through the windows is golden, the kind of light that makes everything look beautiful even when it's not. "Welcome," a voice says. Female. Young. Vivienne turns and sees a girl, maybe 19, maybe 20, thin in the way that suggests recent trauma, standing in the doorway to what must be the kitchen. She has Victor's eyes. The same dark intensity. The same shape around the cheekbones. "You must be Natasha," Vivienne says. "Victor mentioned me." The girl sounds surprised. She sounds like someone who doesn't expect to be remembered. "He did. When he was waking up from the anesthesia. You were the first thing he wanted to talk about." Something changes in Natasha's expression. It's subtle, a slight softening around her eyes, but it's there. This girl loves her brother. She loves him in the way that someone loves a person who's taken care of them even when taking care of them involves darkness and difficult choices. "He's in the study," Natasha says. "He told me to show you where. He also told me to stay in my room for the next 2 hours. He said you two needed to talk privately. He said it was important." Vivienne follows her down a hallway lined with artwork, paintings that must be worth more than most people's houses. Original pieces. Museum-quality work. But they're not displayed. They're just hanging on the walls of this penthouse like they're normal things. Like most people have 7-figure paintings in their hallways. The study door is heavy. Wooden. Old. Victor sits behind a desk that looks like it's been in his family for generations. He's dressed formally, dark suit, white shirt, no tie. He looks powerful. He looks like someone in complete control of his environment and everything in it. "Sit," he says. "I prefer to stand." "Sit anyway." Vivienne sits. The chair is comfortable, which is somehow worse than if it were uncomfortable. Comfort is seductive. Comfort makes you want to stay. "I want to show you something," Victor says. He pulls up a file on his computer and turns the monitor toward her. It's a legal document. She scans the heading. Her stomach drops. It's a deed. To the clinic property. And it's made out in her name. Not his. Hers. The transfer is dated from 3 days ago. "What is this?" she asks. "Insurance," he says. "For both of us. You own the property. You own the building. The clinic is yours. Legally. If something happens to me, if I die, if I'm arrested, if something goes wrong, the clinic stays with you. It stays open. Your brother's program stays funded because I've set up separate accounts that can't be traced to me. Your mother's care is paid for from a trust that I've established. You wanted to know that the people you love are safe. Now they are. Legally. Why would you do this?" "Because," Victor says, and for the first time since she's known him, he looks uncertain, "I want you to choose to be here. Not because you're trapped. Not because you have no choice. I want you to choose me even when you could walk away." Vivienne stares at the deed. It's real. The signatures are authentic. The notarization is complete. She owns the clinic. She's free. She's completely, absolutely free. Which is, of course, exactly when she becomes completely trapped. Because now she can't tell herself she's being held hostage by circumstance. Now she has to admit that if she stays, she's staying because she wants to. "I don't trust this," she says. "You shouldn't," Victor agrees. "Trust is a luxury I can't afford. But I can give you this. I can give you freedom. I can give you the ability to walk away knowing that everyone you love is still safe. The question is whether you want to." Before Vivienne can answer, her phone buzzes. A video message from an unknown number. She opens it. She sees her brother Tommy. He's at his community center. He's with a group of kids, laughing, teaching them something about basketball or violence prevention or how to stay alive in neighborhoods where staying alive isn't always a given. He looks happy. He looks clean. He looks like someone who got a second chance and is actually using it. The video ends. Another message comes through. This one shows her mother in a hospital room. Dr. Aisha Okafor is sitting beside her, and they're talking about test results. The cancer is gone. Completely gone. No traces. Her mother is reaching over and squeezing Dr. Okafor's hand. She's crying happy tears. The video ends. I'm showing you this, Victor says, to remind you of what you've already chosen. You chose to be part of my world the moment you saved my life. You chose it again when you accepted the help for your family. Every choice since then has been about accepting that reality, not creating it. I'm just being honest about what's already happening. Vivienne feels something crack inside her chest. It's the sound of denial breaking apart. It's the sound of a woman admitting to herself that she's already made the most important decision of her life and she can't undo it. If I stay, she says quietly, what happens? You help me, Victor says. You become someone I trust. You become someone I want to protect. You become someone I could actually love. The way he says love is different. It's not soft. It's not romantic. It's possessive. It's the way a man talks about something he's claimed as his. And Vivienne should feel repulsed. She should feel trapped. But what she feels instead is recognized. For the first time in her life, someone has looked at her and seen exactly what she is, a woman who will do terrible things for the people she loves, a woman who will compromise her ethics for safety, a woman who will accept darkness if it means the people around her survive. He sees her. All of her. And he hasn't destroyed her for it. He's just acknowledged it. I'll stay, she hears herself say. Subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next story that inspires and transforms. These are the kinds of stories that deserve to be heard, and I want to know what you're thinking. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Vivienne's position? Could you have walked away? Tell me your thoughts. Let's inspire each other. 6 months have passed. Vivienne has moved into the penthouse. Her apartment, that small studio in an affordable neighborhood, is cleaned out and closed. She owns almost nothing now except what's in the penthouse and the clinic. It's a form of freedom she didn't anticipate. Ownership is heavy. Simplicity is light. Victor's organization is more complex than she imagined. It's not all criminal. Maybe 30% is actually legal. He owns restaurants and real estate and an import-export business that seems to be legitimate most of the time. The other 70% is the territory business, the protection rackets, the gambling operations, the money movement that keeps it all functioning. Vivienne doesn't participate in any of it. She's not asked to. But she sees it. She hears conversations. She understands the scope of what Victor controls. Natasha has become her friend. The girl was living in the penthouse alone before Vivienne arrived, just her and security guards and staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Now she has someone. Now she has a woman who can understand what it means to have everything and nothing. Natasha tells her about the trauma, about why Victor keeps her locked in the penthouse with bodyguards outside her door. About the man he killed to keep her safe. About the family who wanted to use her as leverage and what Victor did to them. Natasha is both grateful and horrified by the violence. Vivienne understands. She's both grateful and horrified by what she's become. Then the threat arrives. Not a call. Not an email. A body. One of Victor's lieutenants, a man named Carson, is found in his car in a parking garage. Shot twice in the back of the head. The way he's positioned suggests that whoever did it was looking him in the eye when they pulled the trigger. It's personal. It's a message. It's war. Vivienne is in the clinic when the news reaches Victor. She watches him take the phone call. She watches his expression change from neutral to something darker, something that shows exactly what he is beneath the expensive suit and the penthouse and the art collection. She watches him become the man who people fear. He doesn't say much. Just listens, then hangs up. He calls her office immediately. The tone is different now. There's no softness. There's no care. There's just a command. I need you to come home, he says. Now. She closes the clinic early. Her staff thinks she's sick. She doesn't correct them. By the time she reaches the penthouse, there are armed men everywhere. Security has been doubled. Maybe tripled. There are people she's never seen before, positioned at every entrance. The penthouse is becoming a fortress. Victor is pacing in the study when she finds him. He hasn't changed out of his meeting clothes. His face is sharp with focus. Someone killed Carson, he says without preamble. Someone's making a move against my organization. I need to respond, and I need to respond hard enough that no one else gets any ideas. What does that mean? Vivienne asks, though she already knows. It means I'm going to do things that will require you to accept what I am, Victor says. And I need to know if you can do that. I already have, Vivienne says. I've been doing it for 6 months. Not like this, he says. Not where you'll see the consequences. Not where you'll understand exactly what kind of violence I'm willing to commit. This is different. This is real. He moves closer to her. He takes her face in his hands the way he did in the restaurant, but this time it's different. This time there's aggression in the gesture. This time it's about possession. Can you stay with me? He asks. Knowing what I'm about to do. Knowing that people are going to die because of my orders. Can you look at me after that and still want to be here? Vivienne thinks about her brother. She thinks about her mother. She thinks about the clinic. She thinks about all the people who are safe because she made the choice to be here. She thinks about the woman she used to be, the doctor who thought she could save people without getting her hands dirty. She thinks about how dead that woman is. Yes, she says. I can stay. Victor's grip on her face tightens. For a moment, she's terrified. For a moment, she thinks he's going to hurt her. But he doesn't. He just looks at her like she's answered a question correctly. Like she's proven something about herself that he needed to know. Good, he says. Because the next 48 hours are going to show you everything. He releases her and walks to the window. Below them, Chicago spreads out in the dark. Lights everywhere. People everywhere. All of them think they're safe. All of them unaware that their safety is maintained by men like Viktor Morozov doing the kinds of things that decent people refuse to do. There's someone I need you to meet, Victor says. Someone who works for me. Someone who's going to be important for what comes next. And I need him to understand that you're not someone to threaten or use against me. I need him to understand that you're as much a part of my organization as I am. Who? Vivienne asks. His name is Ezra Caldwell, Victor says. He's the most violent man I've ever met, and I've made my life around violence. He's the person I send when I need something to stop existing. He's the person I send when I need a message delivered in blood. There's a knock on the study door. Victor nods, and Vivienne's heart rate spikes. The door opens. A man stands there. Tall. Massive. Scarred across his face like someone took a knife to him and he decided to wear the wounds like decoration. His eyes are empty. Not angry. Not sad. Just empty. Like nobody's home behind those eyes anymore. I want you to meet Dr. Vivienne Trent, Victor says. Vivienne, this is Ezra. He's going to be staying with us for a while. He's going to be handling some business. I need you to understand that he works for me. I need you to understand that when he does the things I ask him to do, he's doing them on my behalf. And I need you to understand that you're important enough that I'm telling you this. You're important enough that I'm letting you see how everything really works. Ezra looks at her. His eyes are completely unreadable. He nods once. That's all. Just a nod. But it carries enormous weight because she understands, in that moment, that this man has killed people. Probably many people. Probably in ways that are difficult to imagine. And now he knows her. Now he's been told that she's important. Now she's part of the equation. Welcome to the real organization, Ezra says. His voice is quiet. Low. Like someone who's learned that people listen harder when you speak softly. Victor doesn't usually bring civilians into the operations. You must mean something to him. She does, Victor says. There's possessiveness in his voice. There's ownership. There's the declaration that Vivienne is his now in every way that matters. Vivienne understands, in that moment, exactly how far she's fallen. She's no longer a doctor. She's no longer a person with a separate identity. She's an extension of Victor's power. She's a possession. And the worst part is she's not sure she wants to be anything else anymore. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on those notifications because the next chapter is where everything changes. The real story is about to begin. Drop your thoughts in the comments about where you think this is going. What do you think Vivienne has gotten herself into? I want to hear from you. Let's discuss this together. The violence unfolds over the next week like a story written in blood and consequence. Vivienne doesn't participate, but she watches. She hears conversations. She understands that 3 different organizations are losing territory, losing money, losing people. The message is clear: Viktor Morozov is not someone to challenge. Viktor Morozov is not someone whose operation can be threatened without severe consequences. What she doesn't expect is the detail of it. What she doesn't expect is how much of the violence is targeted at women and children who are connected to the men who challenged Viktor. Ezra does this efficiently. He doesn't seem to take pleasure in it. That might actually be worse than if he did. He just does what he's been told to do, and then he comes back to the penthouse and eats dinner with them like he's been having a normal day. One night, after a particularly brutal operation, Vivienne finds herself in the kitchen at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep. She makes tea. The steam rises off the cup and fogs her glasses. She's standing there when Ezra walks in. He's bleeding from a cut on his arm. He doesn't acknowledge her. He just walks to the sink and starts cleaning the blood off. "Do you ever think about the people?" Vivienne asks. Ezra doesn't turn around. He runs his arm under the water. The blood swirls down the drain like it's the most natural thing in the world. "No," he says. "Why not?" "Because they're not people to me," he says. "They're obstacles. They're problems that need solving. Thinking about them as people would make it harder to do what needs to be done. Viktor chose me because I don't think about them as people. That's my value. That's what I bring to the organization." "That sounds lonely," Vivienne says. Ezra turns and looks at her. His scarred face shows no expression. His empty eyes show no reaction. "I don't get lonely," he says. "I don't feel much of anything anymore. It's better this way. It's cleaner. It's simpler." He walks out of the kitchen, leaving his blooded water in the sink. Vivienne watches it drain. She thinks about feeling and not feeling. She thinks about the woman she used to be, the woman who felt everything, and wonders if that woman would be horrified by who she's becoming, or if that woman would understand that this is the only way to survive in Viktor's world. 2 days later, the threat was eliminated. The rival organization is broken. Their territory is absorbed into Viktor's. Their leadership is dead or missing or has fled the city. By any measure, Viktor has won. The violence has accomplished its purpose. That night, Viktor takes Vivienne to the penthouse terrace. The city lights stretch out below them. He has a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. He pours carefully. The wine is dark red, probably expensive, probably tasting like things that only expensive wine tastes like. "You've been quiet," he says. "I'm processing," Vivienne says. "Are you having second thoughts?" Vivienne looks at him. She looks at this man who has claimed her and trapped her and somehow, in the process, freed her from the burden of having to pretend to be good. She looks at him and sees exactly what he is. No compromises. No excuses. Just a man who has built an empire on violence and is honest about it. "No," she says. "I'm not having second thoughts. I'm accepting the 3rd and 4th and 5th thoughts. I'm accepting that this is who I am now. I'm accepting that the woman I used to be is dead and this is who came after her." Viktor pulls her close. He kisses her, and it's not gentle. It's not romantic in the way that romantic things are supposed to be. It's possessive. It's claiming. It's the kiss of a man who has decided that this woman is his and is going to make sure she understands what that means. "I need to tell you something," he says when he pulls away. "About Natasha. About why she's really here." "What?" Vivienne asks. "She was supposed to be a bargaining chip," Viktor says. "There are people, powerful people in this city, who want to control me through her. They wanted to use her to force me into compromises. I brought her here to keep her safe. But also to keep myself honest. When I look at her, I remember that there are things worth protecting. There are people who matter. There are reasons to maintain some kind of code even in a world without rules. Vivienne feels something shift inside her. She's been thinking of Natasha as a victim. She's been thinking of Victor as a man using everyone around him. But what if it's more complicated? What if Victor loves his sister and that love is the only thing that keeps him from becoming fully like Ezra? What if Victor needs people who care about him to maintain some kind of human connection? Where is Natasha? Vivienne asks. Asleep. In her room. Protected by security guards who would die for her because I've made sure they understand that's their job. And me? Vivienne asks. What's my job? You, Victor says, and for the first time since she's known him, his voice carries something that sounds like vulnerability, are supposed to make me remember that I was ever human. You're supposed to be the thing that reminds me that I can still choose to be better, even if I don't always make that choice. You're supposed to be the person who looks at me and doesn't flinch from what I am. Vivienne pulls back. She looks at him directly. She sees the power and the violence and the darkness. She also sees something else. She sees a man who is terrified of being completely consumed by the role he's chosen. She sees a man who is using her as an anchor to something human. What happens now? She asks. Now, Victor says, we go inside. We hold each other through the night. And tomorrow, we start figuring out how to build something real from all this destruction. Is that possible? I don't know, Victor says honestly. But I want to try. And I want you here while I try. They go inside. The penthouse wraps around them like a shelter or a cage. Vivienne still can't decide which. But she chooses to stay. She chooses him. She chooses the life that's been built from blood and consequence and moral compromise. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the final chapter is coming, and it's going to answer every question you've been asking yourself. What does love look like in a world like this? What does redemption mean when you've gone this far? What does the future hold for Vivienne and Victor? Don't miss it. Comment below and tell me what you think happens next. I want to hear your predictions. Let's build this community together. 1 year later, the clinic is thriving. Vivienne works there 4 days a week. The 5th day is reserved for the penthouse, for Victor, for Natasha, for the complicated life she's built in the space between legitimate medicine and criminal empire. She's learned to compartmentalize in ways that would have horrified her former self. She saves lives at the clinic. She enables a crime organization in the penthouse. Both things are true. Both things are her. Her brother Tommy doesn't know the full truth about her life. He knows she's involved with someone powerful. He knows that someone is making sure his program is funded. He chooses not to ask questions. That's love in the real world, knowing your loved one is part of something complicated and choosing to be grateful anyway. Her mother is alive. The cancer is in remission. She asks Vivienne about Victor sometimes, but not often. She's learned that some things are safer not to know. She's learned to accept her daughter's choices without understanding them completely. Natasha is taking online classes. She's studying psychology. She wants to work with trauma survivors. She wants to take her own experience of being used and controlled and transform it into something that helps other people. Vivienne recognizes herself in Natasha, both of them trying to find meaning in darkness, both of them trying to build something good from foundations of violence. Victor has changed, or maybe he's just revealed who he always was underneath the power. He's more careful now. He's moved some of his operations away from direct violence. He's developed legitimate business ventures. He's making money the way legal businesses make money. It's slower. It's less immediately profitable. But it's what Vivienne asked him to do, and he did it because she mattered to him enough that he was willing to change. Ezra is still there. Ezra is still doing the things that Ezra does. But even he has started showing signs of being affected by Vivienne's presence. He's less mechanical. He's more human. Or maybe he's just learning to hide what he is more effectively. Vivienne isn't sure which, and she's learned that not knowing is sometimes better. Tonight, there's dinner. Nothing fancy. Just Victor and Vivienne and Natasha and Ezra. They're eating food that Vivienne cooked herself, pasta and vegetables and chicken that tastes like home tastes. They're talking about the clinic. They're talking about Natasha's classes. They're talking about normal things that people talk about when they're part of a family. Except they're not a normal family. They're bound together by trauma and violence and moral compromise. But as Vivienne looks around the table at these people who have become everything to her, she understands that maybe that's what family actually is. It's not perfect. It's not clean. It's people who have seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway. I want to ask you something, Victor says to Vivienne. He says it like the question has been sitting on his tongue for a long time. Like he's been rehearsing it but never finding the right moment. Okay, Vivienne says. She already knows what's coming. She's been waiting for it. He pulls out a ring. Not flashy. Not the kind of ring designed to show off wealth. It's simple. Elegant. It's a ring that says commitment without screaming about money. It's a ring that looks like it came from someone who understands that some things matter more than showing off. I know I'm not the person you thought you were going to spend your life with, he says. I know this isn't the life you planned. But I also know that you chose me. You chose this. You chose to stay in a world that most people run from. And I'm asking if you'll keep choosing me. I'm asking if you'll marry me. Everyone at the table is quiet. Natasha is crying. Ezra is watching with his empty eyes and something underneath the emptiness that might be happiness or might be respect or might be something Vivienne has never seen before. The penthouse is silent except for the sound of the city outside, the sound of Chicago living and breathing and continuing forward. Yes, Vivienne says. I'll marry you. It's the right choice. It's also the wrong choice. It's both at the same time, and Vivienne has learned to live in that space where right and wrong have stopped being clear. She's learned to make peace with moral compromise. She's learned to build a life from blood and consequence and the kind of love that doesn't come with clean emotions or simple answers. The dinner continues. Someone opens champagne. Natasha talks about designing the wedding. Ezra asks what his role will be in the ceremony. It's surreal and beautiful and terrible and perfect all at once. Later, when everyone has gone to their rooms, Vivienne stands at the penthouse window. She looks out at Chicago. She thinks about the woman she used to be, the doctor who came to the hospital that night. She thinks about the woman she is now, the woman who is engaged to a crime boss and has made peace with that choice. She thinks about the moment that changed everything. The rain. The blood. The choice to save a man she didn't know. She thinks about how one decision can echo across a year and reshape your entire identity. She thinks about how the life you never planned becomes the only life that makes sense. Behind her, Victor emerges from the darkness. He wraps his arms around her. He holds her like she's something precious. She leans back into him, and they stand together looking out at the city, two people who have found each other in the wreckage of moral compromise and built something that might be love. The screen fades. The city lights fade. The ending is open because the ending is never really an ending. It's just the pause before the next chapter begins. It's just the moment before the next choice, the next consequence, the next step into a future that nobody can predict but everyone has to live. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for following Vivienne's journey from doctor to lover to bride of a crime boss. Thank you for understanding that morality isn't always simple. Thank you for accepting that people are complicated and choices are complicated and love is complicated. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because more stories are coming. Stories about people who face impossible choices. Stories about people who compromise their ethics and have to live with what they've done. Stories about people who find love in unexpected places. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think about Vivienne's choice. Tell me whether you think she made the right decision. Tell me what you would have done in her position. Let's talk about this. Let's inspire each other. Let's build a community where we can discuss the complicated reality of human choices and human nature. This is just the beginning.